Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome everybody. We're live streaming from various locations, and we'll call the meeting to order. And the first item of business is the 1.1. Are there any conflicts of interest or pecuniary interest? If any members of council have any, please raise your hand to indicate. Okay, I see no indication of any pecuniary interest on tonight's agenda, so Lana will note that. And then we have the agenda. Any members of the agenda? Anybody care to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Simpson moves the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Okay. All right. I'll call the question. All in favor? So, okay, and then so everybody, Councillor Chapman, Simpson, Avery, Lloyd, Home, and Pauls, and Mary Craig all voted in favor. Okay, and then we'll go down to the next item of business, item 3.1, regular council meeting minutes of November the 23rd, 2020. Any errors or omissions? And entertain, okay, Councillor Home indicates that he would move the minutes as presented. Any discussion? Councillor Lloyd? Doreen, you want to say something? You can unmute.
Do I vote? I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't vote, right?
You can abstain. Yeah.
I'll abstain.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, so we have Councillor Lloyd that abstained, and Councillor Chapman, Mayor Craig, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Avery, Councillor Holm, and Councillor Pauls all voted in favor. Then we have a special meeting 3.2, December 2nd, 2020. The minutes. Councillor Chapman moves the minutes as presented. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, I have indication from all members of council that they're in favor. That's Councillor Chapman, Craig, Simpson, Avery, Lloyd, Holm, and Pauls. And then we have 3.3, the special council meeting of December the 3rd, 2020. Councillor Holm moves. Okay, thank you. And all in favor? Okay, I have unanimous, Chapman, Craig, Simpson, Avery, Lloyd, Holm, and Pauls, all in favor. And then it's first item of business is 5, the bylaw land use rezoning 790-P-11-20 entertaining. So we'll open the public hearing for that land use bylaw. And Spencer, you want to introduce that?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. So as you've already mentioned, this is a public hearing for the land use rezoning bylaw 790-P-11-20. That's to rezone lands legally described as lots 27 and 28, block 16, plan 6476 AA, with the civic address 410 21st Avenue, more commonly known as the vacant lots northwest of R.A. Baker Middle School. The application was received a couple of months ago, and first reading was granted at the November 23rd regular meeting of council. The proposal is to bring the current zoning, being R2, into the new proposed zoning of R1B, with the intent to subdivide into 3 east-west lots in the future. It would be a residential small lot zoning to match the lot size that would be created by those 3 lots. And the intention, according to the owner and applicant, would be that each of the lots be developed for single family dwellings should this rezoning be successful. In terms of advertising and public engagement, the rezoning public hearing. This public hearing was advertised for 2 consecutive weeks prior to this meeting in the Sunny South newspaper in the December 1st and December 8th editions of the paper. It was also mailed to surrounding residents and property owners, and no communication has been received by staff to speak for or against the application at this hearing. That would bring my comments to a close, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that council may have.
I'll open the floor to questions by council. Councilor Avery has a question.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Spencer, just for clarity for my own sake, that so none of the neighbors had any concerns about this rezoning?
Through the chair to Councillor Avery, that is my understanding as far as the communication that I would have hoped to have received if there was anyone who had a issue with or was in support of the application.
Thank you.
Was there, Spencer, was there any written communication or any other communication then?
There was no formal communication received in regards to the application and this evening's public hearing.
That's a familiar usage for that area with the previous building there. So, of course, it's been demolished for a while. Any other questions, sir, to Spencer? Councillor Lloyd?
Yes, thank you, Your Mayor, Your Worship. Just to comment, it's exactly the same plan that would be kitty corner from that lot. And the people there think it's a great idea. So I think the neighbors are all in favor. So I would be prepared to make a motion to approve that.
Okay, that's good. I'll put your name beside that in the upcoming section of the agenda then. And right now we're in the public hearing part, so that's okay. We're still in the public hearing. Any other questions through to Spencer? Okay, I don't see any indication of any. Does any member of council have any last questions before I close the public hearing? Okay, I don't. Oh, Councillor Holm.
Just one quick question. Thank you, Your Worship. Spencer, when this came to municipal planning, they looked at having the building sites going facing west or facing south. So I'm assuming that they've now made the final decision that they're going to face to the west. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Holm. Yes, excellent question. So because of the fact that going with smaller single family lots or single family development as the future intended type of development versus multifamily, which was previously what would have gone to the Planning Commission, it certainly suits the site better to go east-west versus north-south.
Thank you.
Your Worship, through to Spencer, there's going to be a back alley along that part too?
Through the chair to Councillor Chapman, there would be a back alley where there is one today, which would be then on the north boundary of the northerlymost lot. And then the southerlymost lot would be double frontage, so a side street and a main street. And then there'd be a middle lot that would not have a back alley.
Thank you. So for waste pickup, I imagine it'll be on street then.
Through the chair, yes, that's my understanding.
Does council agree that we have enough information to make a decision, or is there any more questions of council? Raise your hand if you have any more questions. Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on that bylaw. And then we have the road closure bylaw next, item 2 in the public hearing. So Spencer, we've got bylaw 793P1120. You can introduce that, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just as a point of process, is the hearing is declared open for this particular item?
Yes, it is. Yes, I'll open the,
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a little bit different. As I had indicated when first reading was granted by council at the November 23rd meeting, with a road closure, there's a fairly specific process that's required, given that the final decision to close or not close a road lies with the province in this case. So for this particular application, the bylaw is intended to close a portion of road right-of-way that was created as a result of a subdivision of the lands legally described as the 10-acre parcel within the northwest of 12-9-20 west of the 4th meridian, resulting in the subdivision of lands legally described as Lot 9, Block 1, Plan 1812373. So effectively, what's happened, and I don't know, Alana, if we could go to what you have on your screen, but if we could go to the Schedule A of the bylaw, it shows an illustration of crosshatched area, which is the exact area that was taken out of the subdivision to allow for a future road for some future configuration of neighborhood in the northwest of 12, shown on that illustration. However, the applicant had, or the property owner had provided quite a ways after the fact a document that was registered on the title that allows for them to create an access over the town property to get to the larger remaining 10-acre piece after the acreage had been taken out to allow for the home to be on a separate property. So with that being the case, the road has to be closed and essentially put back into the area that makes up the smaller subdivision with the home and the outbuildings on it. And so with this particular public hearing, the same process as is used for rezoning was run, except for the idea that we would have second and third considered this evening after the public hearing is closed. So the difference now is that the public hearing was advertised on December 1st and December 8th in the Sunny South News, circulated to area landowners. Again, no commentary was received, written or verbal, to wish to speak at this hearing. But instead of considering second and third reading after the hearing is closed, it would simply be that we report to the province that the hearing has been held. We provide evidence of the circulations and the newspaper ads, and then once the province has signed off on the documentation we provide, it would come back to council at a future date for consideration of second and third reading. And that essentially concludes what I have to comment on in regards to this application. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions council may have.
okay, at this time I'll open the floor to questions. Spencer, then, if council has any. Okay, I don't. Seeing no questions, then I will assume that I'll give council one last shot at asking any questions. And I would suggest that we have enough information to close the public hearing on this matter then. So that the public hearing on this bylaw is considered closed, and then Spencer will follow the process going forward on informing the province. Then we're at 5.1. We have a delegation, South Coaldale Future Development Consultation Plan. And joining us tonight by Zoom are Douglas Bergen and Amanda Kaiser. So if Lana can let them join the meeting and they can present their plan for the consultation. Okay, all right, there we go. We have a okay, that's fine. Yes, Gary, sorry for not including you. I see him. Yeah.
been retained by Montera to lead the engagement for this project, and we have implemented successful in-person and online engagement processes for various development, transportation, and planning projects for communities of a similar size throughout Alberta. So in terms of our engagement project, just want to give a brief overview. Our engagement plan, which has been provided to Council for information, outlines the anticipated community engagement process related to the amendment of the South Coaldale area structure plan and rezoning process for the future residential development of lands located south of 24th Avenue and between 17th Street and 13th Street. Our engagement approach has been broken down into 3 phases over an approximate 4-month time frame and will take place between January to April 2021. And our plan is meant to be a living document. The engagement approach and schedule may change slightly as the project moves forward just due to COVID-19 and the evolving health and safety measures in place, and to also ensure that our engagement approach continues to meet the needs of the project and town residents. Our engagement approach includes a mix of both online and in-person opportunities, which again may be adjusted depending on the COVID-19 restrictions at the time of implementation. And we also recognize that not all residents are comfortable participating in online sessions or providing comments through online methods. So we will ensure that all residents have an opportunity to participate in a manner that is most comfortable for them, which means we'll provide hard copies of information and surveys, and also follow up with telephone calls as needed throughout the process. As part of our plan, we have requested support from the town for the following items, which include developing and hosting project information on the town's website, mailing out letters to residents as needed, and sharing information about the project and upcoming engagement opportunities through the town's social media accounts, just again to make sure that information is accessible and available to residents and stakeholders throughout the process. Again, in our engagement plan, we highlight our public engagement spectrum according to IEP2 and our engagement and communications objectives for the project, as well as our engagement approach and our evaluation process, which we will implement throughout our process. And I'll just briefly go through that with you. So for phase 1 of our project, we will include the involve level of engagement, which means that we will work directly with the public throughout the process to ensure community concerns and aspirations are consistently understood and considered, and we'll demonstrate where and how community feedback informed the preparation of the development concept. And in phase 3 is at the level of consult, which means we will obtain feedback on the revised development concept and acknowledge concerns and aspirations and explain how feedback was used to finalize the development concept. And in terms of the engagement and communications objectives for the project, those include to develop a robust process that both shares information about the project and the process that gathers feedback from residents to inform the preparation of the development concept, to facilitate meaningful engagement by developing targeted communication materials and engagement methods, as well as to provide multiple engagement activities and opportunities for input at major milestones so that residents are able to provide feedback through methods that they're most comfortable with, and to strive for broad community understanding for the overall engagement process, as well as the final development concept. And just to go into a little bit more detail in terms of our engagement approach in phase 1, which again will be January to early February 2021, the purpose of that phase of engagement is to provide an overview of the project and gather feedback on potential concerns and ideas for consideration in the creation of the draft development concept. So in terms of activities that we will implement during that phase of engagement include an online engagement session with presentation and facilitated discussion and workshop, an online survey, as well as presentations and session recordings being available to post online for those who couldn't attend the session, as well as paper copies of the presentation and survey, which will be made available upon request, and an engagement summary, which will be provided to the town to post on the website to provide a summary of key themes that were heard by residents. In phase 2, that will again occur from mid-February to late March 2021. And the purpose of that phase of engagement is to present the draft development concept and gather feedback on strengths and areas of improvements to revise the development concept. And again, the activities for that phase of engagement will be similar. And again, we'll evaluate whether or not an in-person session will be possible. If not, it will be online, as well as an online survey and materials provided online and paper copies provided upon request, as well as an engagement summary available to post online to summarize the engagement process and key themes that we heard during engagement. And again, phase 3 will occur from late March to April 2021 and will include, the purpose of that phase of engagement will include the opportunity to present the revised development concept and gather any final comments to finalize that development concept plan. And again, activities for that phase of engagement will be similar. We'll evaluate whether or not an in-person session will be possible, and if not, an online session will be held, as well as an online survey with materials being available online, paper surveys and materials being available upon request, and a summary of feedback being provided. Just in terms of the evaluation process for our project, we will be conducting evaluation at each phase of engagement. We'll be asking participants to provide feedback on the engagement process to help us identify what is working and if there's any needs for improvement. And this will just help us make any modifications that may need to be made to the engagement process during the project, as well as inform the design and implementation of future processes. So that summarizes our engagement plan that we've provided to council. And we just wanted to say that we really look forward to engaging with Coaldale residents and stakeholders through our engagement process for the South Coaldale Residential Development Project. And thank you very much for the opportunity to present our plan at this meeting.
Thank you, Amanda. I see Mr. Bergen is joined. Did you want to add anything to the presentation, Mr. Bergen, or?
Yeah, well, certainly, my apologies for being late, Your Worship, members of council. So I'm not a wizard at technology, but I guess eventually I did get there. I always, when I come before you, want to express our appreciation for all that you do for our town. I know that I'm a huge advocate for the town of Coaldale, and I try and promote the town and all that you do for us when I'm in the public and meeting with various people. So I want to acknowledge all of your efforts and thank you very much for that, and take a little bit of credit for bringing Montara back to the table. You'll recall a few years back, we stood before you and presented the Solera project. That project is now complete, and we have 35 new families living in Coaldale. And so Gary has had good success there. And so when this opportunity came up, with maybe a little bit of a nudge from Kaylin, we came back to the table and are very much looking forward to working with you. And of course, he introduced Amanda and ISL to you with regard to the engagement process that we've embarked on to meet the criteria that the town has adopted. So we're very much looking forward to a little bit different path to seeing success and quality development in the town. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Douglas. And I want to commend yourself and Mr. Renkma for such a stellar project of Solera. I live near there and I have a chance to walk by it, and it was all that you promised. It would be a high quality residences, and I think it really added to the neighborhood. So I want to thank you very much for your continued investment in Coaldale. So that's amazing. And I think I want to also thank you very much for coming forward with a robust engagement plan like this. I think it will be a landmark way of doing business going forward, and I really commend the developer for going forward with something like this and then getting out there and really warming up the atmosphere for the development and getting through public engagement in process. And I think that'll bode well for any bylaw changes, and you'll have a good understanding the receptivity of the community by the time you formalize everything. So I think this is a really novel way of putting everything together, especially in the COVID environment. As Amanda said, I think it'll be a challenging process, and I think that you've built in a lot of flexibility into your model so that you can adapt as things get better or worse, or change throughout the pandemic. So hopefully by the time April comes by, we'll be in a new state of normal, and you can do things the old-fashioned way. Douglas, you want to say anything more, or no?
No, Your Worship, that is all. Thank you.
Okay, and at this time, I will open the floor to council in case any members of council want to ask any questions of the delegation. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to the three of you for your most exciting proposal here. And I'm just really pleased to see your initiative to develop again in Coaldale. And we're, as the mayor said, that we're all pleased with the development that occurred just off of 20th Street North, and seeing it filled up has really been an exciting part of Coaldale. My questions to you more are with regards to the plan itself, and I see that it's such a robust plan, and I'm very pleased that your community engagement is a big part of that plan. Just would you be able to have a bit of a breakdown as to what will be included in your overall development? I know that, just as more of a heads up, that seniors are certainly looking for a place that they can call home again, and I know that in the past Douglas Bergen had ventured an idea forward on that manner, and I'd be just delighted to hear some of that come through again for the town of Coaldale.
Gary, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to speak?
More than happy to. So, yeah, we'd really like to bring a bit more focus on a mixed use site, I would say, where we're offering residential lots to maybe some seniors housing, and to some rentals, maybe some low rise type style buildings. So a little bit more of a mixed use to offer the community a more diverse housing options rather than just one type. So rather than just a subdivision of just houses, put in a mix. And for the location in the area there, we think it's very viable. There's it's a wonderful spot to do that, and then obviously blend it back into the community, back into these residential areas. So thank you.
Very, very good. Thank you so much. And just one final question. I noticed on that you have a 102 Scenic Drive presence in Lethbridge, and I wanted to find out from you if you would consider putting a storefront in Coaldale as well for part of this whole overarching project, and how we can help you achieve that.
That could always be an option. I mean, obviously, we are taking on a fairly big undertaking in Lethbridge with the 102 job, but as always, it's very exciting as well. So we are well on our way to getting pre-sales, and we look forward to doing that project as well. So thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Councillor Holm?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question then. So if your public engagement, all that goes as well as I expect it probably will be, what's your best guess as far as a shovel in the ground, or at least a formalized plan as to this is what it's really going to look like, going to be ready for us?
Well, I would, obviously, Amanda's has a bit of work in front of her, but, if all goes well, I would think the earliest a shovel in the ground, would realistically probably be, early 2022, at the earliest, but, I guess we will see. We'll have to wait and see how things go in this process. So.
Okay, anybody else? All right, well, you did a good presentation, and I think it'll be really interesting to hear back from you from time to time on the process, and I'm glad that the town administration will work closely with you on rolling it out and promoting it on our platforms, etc. So good luck, and Merry Christmas to you all, and thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Okay, we're good to go. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Lana, and all the best, Gary, and we'll be in touch, and we'll go back to our agenda then, and we got our next item is 4.1, Gem in the West report. Russ Tanner will lead that. Welcome, Russ. You can lead off.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up? Yeah, cool. All right. So as you're aware, during the November 5th Special Council budget meeting, administration was directed to conduct further research concerning air quality and to specifically address the concerns of mold in the building due to years of moisture penetration. Further, administration was asked to provide council with any additional foreseen expenses still to come with the Gem of the West Museum building. So since this matter was last appeared before council, administration has engaged third-party consultants to conduct an interior air quality test. It's in the package for you. An interior visual foundation and structure review, and an exterior roofing inspection. This project update will include the following: the results from that air quality testing, the results from the roof inspection. We also went back and pulled out the MPE engineering limited evaluation done back in 2012. That's been provided as part of the package. And we've reviewed the money spent in the past 8 years as a result from that 2012 evaluation. Administration will also provide a recommendation of for the unforeseen future, what type of money is going to be spent, and costs associated with the recommendation provided by administration should the building stay within the same type of use. So first and foremost, the air quality testing. The attached report from Pillar Post Professional Home Inspection tells us that the highest levels of fungal spore and particles detected were in the basement, where there was recent moisture penetration from the foundation. That level came back at 280. Through communication with Pillar Post, we did learn that they look for levels of 1,000 or elevated above that. Again, the highest that we got on record was 280. The rest of the building was substantially lower than that, around 100, and that report's attached. So the recommendation was to treat the affected area once the foundation is sealed and proper drainage systems are installed. By treating that, we agitate that and clean that up, any of the mold existing that we can see. There's also a process you can do for air scrubbing that is something that we can do if there still is a little bit of a faint smell in there. At the time of the inspection, we couldn't smell that, but there's no doubt that it's been there at times, because you can certainly see some of the moisture that's penetrated the walls in the past. So the other thing we did was a roof inspection. We had a quote done for us, and that'll come up a little bit later here. But in 2012, it was suggested that we had 10 to 15 years of life left on that roof, and the inspection just recently done would confirm that we're actually at kind of the tail end, to 8 to 10 years at least left on the shakes, the cedar shakes that exist on the building. And that exists on all the expansion and the shop as well. So the 2012 facility evaluation update, some recommendations have been made and that have already been looked after, that were made in that report. So I'm going to outline that in projects completed. The exterior drainage, stormwater systems, and sidewalk and parking lot repairs have been done for right around an estimated $150,000 to the asset in the last 8 years. The roof structure support, there was a suggestion that there should be some roof tie rods put within the structure. That did take place, and was estimated around $95,000. Some emergency system upgrades to sprinklers and emergency lighting have also been done, as there's been battery packs come due and things like that throughout the years. And that's been an estimated $5,000 to $10,000 in the past 8 years. And also some of the electrical upgrades with lighting and wiring have been done, but some limited up to this point. So projections to complete within the next 5 years would be the project that was brought to council for budget for 2021. And that's estimated at $140,000, as you're aware. After that project's done, it's likely that we'll need to do some repair to the stucco. There is some repair already needed. However, I certainly wouldn't do that ahead of this project. So that $40,000 is in there for stucco repairs. And then there is a fire panel upgrade needed within the next few years, and that'll cost about $15,000. All right, and then 5 to 10 years is the roof replacement. Now I put $115,000 in here just so you're aware that what that would do is that would actually put a metal roof on that existing building to replace the cedar shakes there, which would be an option, I guess, at the time. In today's dollars would be $171,600 to do. There are other options. You could also look at asphalt shakes, architectural shingles for roughly $50,000 to $60,000. So there are some options there, but that 115 would be a healthy budget to replace the roof with metal. And then projected money to be spent 10 to 20 years from now would mainly be with life cycle items not captured in the 2012 report, such as furnaces and plumbing fixtures, additional lighting, electrical, windows and doors, things like that. And that's just a rough estimate at $100,000 to $150,000 with some of those things being built into there. Then we go into the basement. Now, the 2012 report talked about moisture mitigation. And if we didn't look after moisture mitigation, which is essentially exactly what this project is intended to do, that there could be movement in the basement and on the floors. They had poured concrete on a wooden structure some time ago. And so they're kind of waiting to see how that holds up. Visually, there hasn't been much movement at all down there. You can also see that in the columns that get checked on, that those are still in good shape. And so this project would then essentially look after that aspect of things. And should we mitigate the moisture issues, there's a chance that $110,000 of replacing the basement floor, or the $50,000 of replacing the 10 remaining wood columns. There were already some that were done by concrete, but that may never happen. But I wanted to point that out. And the last two items on this, the fire code upgrades to egress, that's the staircases and making sure that you fire rate them so that to a level where if that building's full fire capacity were wanting to be maintained, you'd have to spend some money on the rise and run of those staircases, for instance, and basically you're redesigning the entire staircase So, and putting some fire mitigation on them. And then also the fire rating throughout. That's basically fire rating underneath the decking of the first level and everything like that at $300,000. That funding isn't needed right now if we have a limited capacity that the town has already gone through with that. And for the functions that are existing right now as a museum and as a maximum capacity of people coming in there. If that's maintained, you will not have to do those last two items at this time. Okay, so the financial impact, we're looking at 2021, that $140,000 to try to mitigate and try to provide an opportunity to look at an estimate of $455,000 over the next 20 years, as a worst case scenario being $615,000 over the next 20 years of that building. That's what we've tried to kind of point out in the picture here and the tie down of funds. There would be two options that I can see at this time for council. Option one being that council approve a 2021 capital budget of $140,000 for the waterproofing of foundation, drainage systems, landscaping repair, interior basement wall repair, and mold mitigation. I want to point out that has everything in there, not just sealing the foundation. That is the weeping tile, that is the pumps that exist for getting the moisture away from the building. And I think they've done a really good job of pointing out everything that needs to be done. In fact, Pillar to Post had looked at that quote and the work that's looked at and detailed within that project that would go out for tender. And they've suggested that they've done a very thorough job of doing exactly what they would have done. So there's that option one. Option two would be the council chooses not to make the investment in this building for 2021 and direct administration for further investigation or other options for the museum's future. Our recommendation would be that council approve that they take option one and they approve the 2021 capital budget of $140,000. And the rationale behind that is that basically your historical costs you've done in the last 8 years has already been an investment towards moving the right direction in my mind, with mitigating the water penetration continually happening to that building. The building itself, future costs at $400,000 to $615,000 in 20 years, I think is in my opinion, rational. To replace a building of that square footage using $150 per square foot would cost the town $2.5 million. And to give you an idea of that. And then if there's any questions, that's all I got for you.
Okay, I see Councillor Pauls would like to ask a question.
No.
I'll open the floor then. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Through to Russ, thank you so much for this very extensive report. It is very, very comprehensive, and I just want to extend my appreciation to you for all your hard work there. And also on behalf of the board, to thank you for your inspection of the mold in the building. I think that was really a helpful exercise to determine the issue and what needs to be saved from that. I would certainly encourage you to, in light of all these reports, Russ, I'd certainly like to encourage you to stay in tune with the board chair, Lyndon Hutchinson, in regards to all matters that are proceeding forward, and your thoughts in regards to your timelines and timeframes for this. I know that it seems like it's going to be a very, very expensive program for this museum, which is really all of the history of Coaldale captured in this one building. And so I guess if I add all the numbers up, it would probably be over $1.2 million or somewhere in there over the next 10, 15 years in terms if we started spending money, methodically to the manner that you're looking at, so that we have a building that's preserved for time and eternity. I would guess I could say. I would favor option number 1 as an expense item for this coming year. I think that certainly is something that has to be done regardless of any other project-based work, and postponing it really won't help any. I might add too that our just maybe as a moment for our departing curator, Carmen Vermeulen, who's going to be leaving on December 18th, and just wanted to thank her for all her hard work and at the museum, and really raising the bar of all the work that's going on there and the artifacts that are preserved there. It's really a testament to what really makes Coaldale, and I just want to thank her for all her work there.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chapman. Russ, do you have anything to respond, or?
No, I appreciate that. There's a lot of work that, as far as research that had been done ahead of time, and so that certainly helped me get to a benchmark as to where the building's at. And yeah, I just think it's a reasonable cost over the next 20 years. If you keep the use of the building the same as what it is, you're looking at it between $400,000 and $615,000 in 20 years. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Okay.
Any other members of council want to ask any questions? Councillor Holm, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just through to Russ, when they did the inspection there, did they go kind of outside the boundaries of the building itself to see if we're actually getting water from neighboring properties or anything, and what might needs to be mitigated there? Or was this really specific to the foundation and close by the foundation of the existing building?
So what I can tell you is, Councillor Holmes, sorry. What I can tell you is that the 2012 report talked a lot about what would be the north side and the parking lot and some of the mitigation and the issues with the moisture that was coming in from there. That's been looked at. To my knowledge, I haven't seen any reports that have looked at anything outside of the foundation further to any other areas. However, what I can tell you is the work that they're projecting on being done for this $140,000 is intended to take whatever water that is coming anywhere near that foundation and migrate it some distance away. And so without doing a whole bunch of soil tests, multiple places around at varying depths, I don't know that we would have, and I haven't seen that report, unfortunately, at this point. However, I did walk around the building, and from all indications, it was actually the water was melting off the roof quite rapidly. The one day that I walked around there, had to go and get the boots on. And what I can tell you is the south side of that building has quite a bit of coverage, trees and shrubbery and things like that, and has a landscape that would indicate that it's not pushing it back right towards the foundation, that it is actually dispersing it out, to my best view.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor, I just want to note that we just lost Councillor Avery. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
Do you want to wait a moment to see if he'll come back in?
Yeah, let's just pause for a minute.
Okay, thank you.
It appears that Councillor Abrey has lost audio feed. Okay, here he comes back in. Okay, are you back online now, Councillor Abrey? You gotta love this. Are you good now, Councillor Abrey? Councillor Abrey, if you can hear me, can you just wave for me? There, are you there? Oh, shoot. You have audio, Councillor Abrey?
Mayor, Councillor Abrey messaged and said that he couldn't log in. He's gonna try again here.
Okay, we'll just take a minute to let him, somebody's working with him to solve this, I hope. continue on? He's gonna keep trying to log in. So, Lana, can you report that Councilor Amy has left the meeting for now and we'll continue on with the 6 remaining members of council?
Will do, thank you.
Thank you. And so we were in the middle of 4.1 German West, and Councilor Holm, did you have your question fully answered then?
I believe I did. Thank you, sir, your worship.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other members of council have any further questions to our presenter, Russ Tanner? As Councilor Chapman noted, it was an extensive report, so thank you for that. And if there's no more questions, I'd entertain a motion. Councilor Pauls moves. Do you move option number 1? There's 2 options there.
Number 1.
Okay, Councilor Pauls moves option number 1. The council approve a 2021 capital budget of $140,000 for waterproofing the foundation, drainage systems, landscaping repair, interior basement wall repair, and mold mitigation. So we have that motion. Any discussion? I see nobody wanting to weigh in on it. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, so I just affirmed that Councilor Chapman, Mayor Craig, Councilor Lloyd, Councilor Holm, Councilor Pauls, and Councilor Simpson all voted in favor. And Councilor Avery was absent for the vote. Okay, so that was carried unanimously then. Thank you. Thank you, Russ. And then we'll go on to 4.2, Municipal Enforcement Service Level Review, Clayton Rutberg.
Thank you, and just making sure you can hear me.
Yes, sir. The floor is yours.
Just bringing forward to council our level of service review and request to determine our level of service going forward with the municipal enforcement program. This matter has come to council previously in some meetings, and it was requested that administration develop an in-depth report examining some different models for service for the municipal enforcement department. Council also requested that public engagement be conducted to obtain input on the direction for the municipal enforcement program. So a little bit of background. In 2019, we stopped providing regional service to Picture Butte, Colehurst, and Barrens, ending our 3-year CPO regionalization pilot program. This pilot program was partially funded by the province of Alberta through the Alberta Community Partnership Grant Program. The regionalization agreement was originally conceived between the municipal partners and was terminated by the town of Coaldale due to inequitable provisions of the original arrangement and the uncooperative and disruptive conduct of specific project partners. As a result of this, town of Coaldale has been left just providing service to ourselves as a part of the municipal enforcement program. So moving forward, we wanted to determine the best level of service to be able to provide high quality service to the residents of Coaldale. Moving forward, we've identified 3 possible models to be utilized for this service. Model 1, as outlined in the report, is a scaled back version of the current program. This model would see a reduced staffing level to provide more cost-effective option for delivering the service. This model would use a CPO along with a school resource officer to deliver service to the town of Coaldale. Model 2 would see a complete change on how the municipal enforcement services are delivered by utilizing a contract provider to provide our municipal enforcement services. The photo radar component of this would remain internal. While this model would see some increased coverage as compared to Model 1, there would still be a noticeable service difference from where we are currently. Model 3 would see a full complement of municipal enforcement staff to provide a high level of service to complaints, including proactive enforcement and community engagement. This model would be the most effective model to manage the various services and programs that the community has identified as being important to them as a part of the stakeholder engagement that we've conducted. This model would see a CPO1, a school resource officer, our part-time photo radar operator, and an out-of-scope supervisor that would provide administrative and strategic oversight, as well as interagency collaboration with the RCMP and other community organizations. There is a financial impact, regardless of whether it's Model 1, 2, or 3, but all service models presented to council fit within our current budget. As a result of previous council meetings, we did do stakeholder engagement, which included a survey that went out, which we had approximately 120 residents answer back, as well as open houses that were conducted, which we had 13 residents attend. The results of the public engagement support our recommendation to council today to move forward with model number 3 as our level of service for this department. So our recommendation to council is that council direct administration to proceed with model 3 as outlined in the municipal enforcement level of service.
Thank you, Clayton. Thanks for the report. And I want to thank you very much for highlighting the fact that the former regional service was attempted, and due to circumstances beyond the control of Coaldale and the administration group in Coaldale, the other external parties were not willing to move forward and would not approve proper capital and operating budgets and to make it sustainable. So it was unfortunate. It was a good try to go and incorporate a regional model, but I think a lot of effort went into keeping that going as well as we could. And at the end of the day, when the other partners wouldn't approve the budget, then we had to choose a different path. So thank you very much for your report, and I'll open the floor up to members of council for any questions.
Excuse me, Mayor, just for the interruption. Councillor Avery has confirmed that he's on the screen there, but he cannot hear anything right now. So he's just so that you know, he's not part of the conversation right now.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Simpson?
Thank you, Your Worship. The one question I have in the budget, is that including the future peak season and the casual photo radar?
The budget currently right now does not include the peak season, but it does include the photo radar.
Go ahead, Councillor Chapman.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I've done a fair amount of thinking on this particular topic here, Clayton, and I wanted to thank you so much for this report and for your earnest effort to make some comparisons here with all 3 models. Your comparisons to other municipalities of our size and to the manner of responses that you've received from the community on policing. I guess where I'm at is I just really am struggling to decide which model I would want to raise my hand to. And if I were to look at the cost of Model 3 versus Model 1 versus and 2 versus 3, there's about $100,000 worth of $110,000 worth of that would be different. Model 1 would be the least expensive. Not to say that if we went with Model 1 that we could possibly use it as a building tool to build to a preferable stage later on when it's more affordable. The models that you've shown really are quite interesting in that Model 3 you do use a liaison between the RCMP and the policing manager, which I certainly approve of, and I think that that's in all due respect to the program we have here in Coaldale, is that we do need an actual police manager. I guess at the time you would call that person the team lead, but now it's would be more of a person that's a policing manager, which I think would be the right way to go at that from that level. Model 2, the town of Coaldale would report to a commission, and that's certainly should be reflected in that, and with that commission that they would be doing all the hiring and the retaining of members accordingly. And then with Model 1, of course, we have something that's I think where we're at right now, and we can certainly build up to it. I guess my question to you, Clayton, would be this: is that with Model 3, it certainly emulates almost like a more robust police force that we don't have, but we do have with the RCMP, and we pay almost $2 million for 9-member police force. So if you can help me with understanding better your ideas about Model 3, as that seems to be the preferred recommendation, and how it can be achieved with the way we have it now. I know that prior to the system prior to today, we used to have up to four CPOs, including the team lead. If you can help me out with that, Clayton.
Yeah, so up until today, so this year, we would have normally had a team lead and 2 CPOs, as well as a school resource officer. So I guess that would be your 4th in total. Some of our reasoning behind Model 3 is the preferred model. It still provides our school resource officer coverage, which seems to be an important thing to council as well as the public throughout the public engagement, while still providing our CPO level of service. But it also throws in that supervisory level that Model 1 doesn't necessarily have, which frees up a little bit more time for that individual to engage a lot more with the community, engage more with our schools, other things like that, while still maintaining that high level relationship back and forth with the RCMP as well. Whereas with Model 1, those responsibilities still remain with myself as the Deputy Chief of Public Safety. So Model 3 sees a lot more freeing up of my time to do a lot more of engagement with the emergency management and fire aspect, and continue our relationship with Lethbridge County on the emergency management and the things as their Director of Emergency Management.
Okay, thank you very much, Clayton. And with Model 1, I mean, if we were to use Model 1 and implement a police manager or CPO manager, what would be the cost difference to do that? Or is that really reflected in Model 3?
That would be reflected very similar to Model 3.
Okay. Because that's really $120,000 difference.
Yeah, it would be slightly, most likely slightly less, but it would be reflected very close.
Okay, any other members of council? Councilor Simpson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to make a motion for number 3, to direct administration to proceed with Model 3 as outlined in the municipal enforcement level of service report.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilor Simpson. Councilor Holm wants the comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to our CAO, Kaylin, I don't remember, maybe Kyle might be online too, I'm not sure. Does option 3 reflect what we've been discussing in our budget to date? Or were we more reflecting on the cost of option 1?
Through the chair to Councillor Holm. The assumption for budget purposes was option 3. If council chooses option 1 or 2, that would be a decrease in the budget that's been proposed to council as it sits currently.
Okay, thank you, CAO Hastings, for that clarity. Any further questions? Councilor
Thank you.
Holm?
Just one follow-up then through to our CAO. If we didn't have the future peak season bylaw student, what is the savings on that if we eliminated that part of option 3? I'm trying to find a way of getting us down to that 0 budget, and I believe we'll be talking about that in a few minutes, but I think we're down to 65,000. Just wondering what that would save.
Through the chair to Councillor Holm, excellent question. As far as I understand, based on Clayton's report, the summer student is not included in the cost proposal associated with option 3, which is in the budget. That would be more of a futuristic expansion option.
If I could just, step in here. The summer student isn't currently included in the draft operating budget.
Isn't. You said is not, correct?
Yeah,
Kyle?
is not.
Right. So for my understanding, I believe what we're doing is we're kind of operating in the world of option number 1 right now. And I would assume that if we went to option number 3, that it would take time to engage and implement and recruit for that. So when would you see that option number 3 would be fully functional? Because if it would take 2 or 3 months, then that would be, you know, a few $1,000s per month until we were fully snapped up for that option number 3. Is that right?
Yes, it would take some time, just in the fact of finishing getting job descriptions drawn up and recruitment and all that type of stuff. We would be taking some time to get that completed.
Any further questions of council? I had the pleasure of meeting, you know, being part of the presentation when we did the workshop a couple of months ago, and you know, I think it was a very robust discussion then, and most of the members of council kind of landed on option number 3 during that session as well. So I'd be in support of option number 3, and I believe that there'd be a little bit of savings in the budget by the time we got it fully functional anyway. Any other discussion? Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Clayton, on the animal services, that'll continue 25,000 with the city of Lethbridge Animal Services.
Yes, the plan was to continue with the Lethbridge Animal Services so that we can provide more hours throughout the week. Essentially, with Lethbridge Animal Services, we have 24/7 coverage. If we have a dog at large during night, any time of the day, they will come out and do that for us.
Okay, we have Councillor Simpson's motion supporting option number 3. Is there any last call for any further questions? Okay, seeing none, I will call for the question. All in favor? Okay, so I see Councillor Chapman, Mayor Craig, Councillor Lloyd, Councillor Holm, Councillor Pauls, and Councillor Simpson have all voted in favor, and we are still without Councillor Avery, so that vote is carried unanimously. Thank you, Clayton. And next up is Kyle with the capital and operating budget, and welcome to our CFO and newly minted father. And he tells me that resting like a baby is not really an accurate phrase, so.
That's correct, yeah. No, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So talking about the budget here, essentially first kind of break it out and talk about the operating budget first. So when we had last met on the 23rd, we had talked about a approximately $75,000 deficit in the draft operating budget. Kind of after the discussions with council, went back and looked at the budget again, and we were able to reduce that by another 15,000. So the deficit was currently at 60,000. Part of that was largely reduced through some library, the municipal levy fee, anticipated to be lower than previously budgeted, and then reduction in a few other line-by-line items such as promotion, conferences, and travel due to some event cancellations. So it's sitting at the $60,000 deficit. And in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, we expect to continue obviously for next year, presenting essentially 2 options for council to consider for this operating budget. Keep in mind that when we're developing these operating plans, it's part of good budgeting and industry standards to focus on smaller increases year by year, should council decide to pass increases rather than larger increases in various years. So with that in mind, the first option we've presented is a 0% increase for taxes and franchise fees for 2021. That $60,000 deficit would be covered off by a mill rate stabilization reserve. So when we talked about this kind of before, this does fix the issue for 1 year. However, with the compounding effect, the town still would have that deficit going into 2022. And then looking at smaller increases year by year, we're looking at, say, a proposed 1% increase in franchise fees for the next 3 years. So part of that option would include a 2% increase in franchise fees for 2022. In order to change franchise fees, it takes approximately 3 months, 3 to 4 months once notice is given to the utility company. So with that in mind, we're bringing the 2022 increase to council as part of option 1 due to the overall timing of having that in place. Option number 2 is kind of what we talked about last year last meeting is a 1% increase for 2021 and 2022. So essentially, due to the compounding effect, if council likes this model, the change in 2022 would essentially be the same. And we're just avoiding an increase in 2021 with option 1 and funding that through the mill rate stabilization reserve. That's kind of the background on the operating side. If we're looking at the capital side, you have a draft capital budget in the agenda package as well. Don't believe there were too many questions from council at the last meeting, so nothing's really changed with that. The only thing that will have to be added is you see the museum budget currently doesn't have a dollar amount beside it. We just left that blank just based on the outcome of council's decision. So that will be added to the 140 that was just previously approved by council. Aside from that, there's just one additional change in the operating budget. An additional $40,000 has been asked from reserve. This would be for the administration to complete phase 2 of the our file reorganization project. Phase 1 has just recently been completed. Phase 2, final phase would be completed in 2021 as part of our file management process. With that, as part of your agenda package, first you do have a draft operating budget for the next 3 years. Follow that is you see individual reports based on department that highlight the 2020 budget versus 2021, just to give council somewhat of a scope of the change from year to year. With that said, there's quite a bit of information in this budget, but I will turn it back to council to answer any questions that they may have at the moment.
Thank you, Kyle. And again, thanks for all the work that you do to get the numbers working for us. Is there any questions through to Kyle? We have Councillor Avery back. Welcome back, Councillor Avery. Okay. So I guess, like you said, okay, I see Councillor Chapman waved his hand. Do you want to speak, Councillor Chapman? You're on mute right now.
Did you want to make some comments first, Your Worship?
Yes, and the floor is open for questions or comments.
Just thank you so much, Spencer and Kyle, for your report here. Just a few questions. If you could help me with how much is in the stabilization reserve account, and also I just have some other operating questions. The other question I have is with MSI, and if you can give us some affirmation as to how to predict the MSI portion of our funding for the coming year.
So the first question, the mill rate stabilization, before we get to the end of the year here, I believe it's between approximately 500,000 and 550,000 current balance. MSI in two concepts here. So first, the MSI operating, the town of Coaldale receives approximately $260,000 a year from MSI operating. And then the MSI capital, we receive approximately anywhere between 1.5 and 1.6 million a year. MSI capital is going to expire effective 2021-2022. Part of that, it will transition to a new framework, which is tied specifically to provincial revenues. So as provincial revenues go down or go up, MSI will change for that. As part of this capital budget, we've only budgeted funds from the MSI project that we know we or anticipate we will receive. No funds from the new framework have been included in this budget, just with the uncertainty. The MSI operating, if say the province did reduce that or change that, that would have an effect on our budget in the future. The province does issue 30 million through MSI operating each year, and with the town's share being 260,000, if that did change on a proportionate basis, it wouldn't be anything of significance with the expectation that the province wouldn't change that significantly, but that can always change.
Okay, does that answer your questions, Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from council? So it appears to me that maybe there hasn't been much discussion about the capital budget, and we've gone over that quite a bit already in the other meetings. So did anybody want to move approval of the capital budget as presented, or any questions? Or Councillor Holm?
I would move the operating and capital budgets as presented.
Okay, there's one option for the operating budget do you want? Option number one?
Option number one.
Okay, so that's no franchise fee increase for 2021 and a 2% increase anticipated in 2022, and taking the deficit out of the mill rate stabilization. Okay, so we have those motions by Councillor Holm.
If I could just, sorry, just make one quick comment. Just the motion is to approve the budget as presented. As presented in the capital, it doesn't have just a dollar amount for the museum. So I know council already approved that, but the item presented doesn't include that. So just if it's noted that that 140 would be added to the capital budget.
I'd be good with that amendment.
Okay, so that is a friendly amendment to Councillor Holmes' motion. Any other, just Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Worship. Through to Kyle on this motion here, then if we're if the operating deficit is 60,000 is handled through the mill rate stabilization reserve, and the council approve a 2% increase in the municipal franchise fees, so that would mean a 0 increase in taxes for that year as well.
The for 2022, we're not looking for council to specifically approve any tax changes at the moment. Just based on the schedule of the budget, that formally would be approved in May of 2022 with the mill rate. We're just looking for the franchise fees at the moment, just because that requires a little more timing to put into place for 2022. As you'll note in the in page 122 of your report, there are some assumed increases for 2020 and 2023. However, formal approval isn't needed for those at the moment. Those are just kind of a placeholder as right now. Those can always change based on amendments or changes to the budget next year. That's just, again, kind of a placeholder for those.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I just wanted to just make sure that we're clear on that, because I just sense that when there will be a compounding hit later on, regardless of whether we go with option 1 or 2. So the motion's on the floor.
Hey, Councillor Avery.
There was a balance in the museum reserve, which it would come from. I believe there was a deficit of approximately $30,000 to $35,000 from the reserve to fund that. That
Okay, we'll pause for a moment.
Bill, you need to mute.
Okay, we're good to go now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Avery, are you have any follow-up questions or?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Were you able to hear Councillor Holmes' amended motion?
Yes, I did hear the motion. And that's where I got the dollar amount from, because I missed the last of the presentation on the museum.
Okay.
And I guess as a follow-up question, are we going to see if there is any grants for this type of work that needs to be done on the museum? And secondly to that, is the Museum Society going to be kicking in any funding for this, or is this all on the town because it's a town facility now?
As far as the grants, I can't speak specifically to this project if there are grants available. However, I do know that our staff does regularly review what's out there and does apply for grants that are available. So if something does come across the desk, it will be something we investigate. To this Museum Society, I can't speak to anything like that. I haven't been aware or heard of any contribution that they were kicking out right now. So essentially it's fully town funded as part of this budget.
Okay, thank you for that, Kyle. Councillor Avery?
Thank you, Worship. And then one more follow-up more for council is, when do we say enough is enough of contributing funds into a facility? You know, 140 this year, 140 in a couple of years for shingles. You know, when is the life expectancy of a facility done with before we say, even though it's a heritage site, that you know, you're throwing good money after bad?
I'm not sure if Russ is still able to, but if Russ, did you want to just, I think you were quite good in your report about the investment into the museum, and I would understand that probably as a community in your role, you would be working closely with the museum to nurture their ability to help with keeping the facility modern and up to date and as well.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And Councillor Avery brings up really good questions. And in my report, I kind of mentioned that too, that it's a good question. Right now, I can tell you the building, considering its age, is in actually relatively good shape because of some of the investment that's happened over the last 8 years. I believe that if you make the investment of $140,000 and then you look at the few items, the stucco and the upgrade to the fire panel, you're still going to be another 8 to 12 years out of that roof replacement. And then it could be, then it's just life cycle for equipment and things which you'll have on any building. It's not just that one. I mean, it is an old building. It's in good shape. Mind you, if we mitigate that moisture, that building could be in the same shape as it is today. And if you don't change what you're actually using the building for, again, which was in the report, if you don't change that and it's a museum for the duration, that building could last quite a bit of time, and be far less capital expense on the town of Coaldale in the next 20 to 30 years than building a brand new building, because it's got, I mean, I'd imagine the service has to go somewhere, and I'm not aware of another building of that size or magnitude that would hold what's in there.
Thank you.
But that's just my take on it.
And Councillor Holm, in earlier submission, Kyle mentioned the management project. And would you be willing to entertain an increase of 40,000 to be transferred from the mill rate stabilization to include that phase of the project, or do you want a separate motion?
I believe we can put it all in a single motion. I'd be good with that.
Okay, Councillor Holm accepts that as friendly. So then we have the motion by Councillor Holm to proceed with the operating and capital budgets as amended. Does that give you enough clarity, Kyle, for finalizing your unit?
Yeah, we're all good.
Okay. Any other discussion then? Okay, I see none. I hope I don't miss anybody with this Zoom stuff. So I will call the question. All in favor? Okay, I see Councillor Chapman, Mayor Craig, Councillor Lloyd, Councillor Holm, Councillor Pauls, Councillor Simpson, and Councillor Avery all voted in favor. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, that's passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, and now we're going to move to item 6.1, rezoning bylaw. Spencer.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing to add other than what was discussed at the public hearing. So at this time, I would ask the council consider second and third reading of bylaw 790P 1120.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Lloyd, you still wish to support the reading? Okay, Councillor Lloyd supports second reading of the bylaw. Any discussion? I see none. I'll call the question. All in favor of second reading? Okay, I see all the hands up. Councillor Chapman, Mayor Craig, Councillor Lloyd, Councillor Holm, Councillor Pauls, Councillor Simpson, and Councillor Avery all in favor. So that was passed unanimously. And I'll entertain a third and final reading of that bylaw. Councillor Simpson moves. Any discussion? Councillor Avery? No, okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and so I see in favor from Councillor Chapman, Mayor Craig, Councillor Lloyd, Councillor Holm, Councillor Pauls, Councillor Simpson, and Councillor Avery. So that's passed unanimously.
Sorry, Mayor Craig, can you confirm who called the motion?
That was Councillor Simpson.
Okay, thank you.
Support third reading.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right. And then we're able to move on to item 6.3, Spencer.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an application for land use rezoning that was received for the lands legally described as Lot 16, Block 12, Plan 6476 AA. And this is an application to rezone a property from residential R1A to commercial C1. Lana, if you could go to page 157 on the agenda, it shows the land uses around the property in question. So this application, just very briefly, recognizing this is a request only for first reading at this time. The application was received on the property highlighted in yellow bolded outline. And it's worth noting that this property is currently zoned R1A. Pardon me. The proposal is to go to C1. And while properties south of this particular piece of property are also zoned R1A, it is worth noting that in proximity to the Main Street area, there are a mix of land uses that occur in this particular area. And it's further worth noting that the three properties north of the subject property, and then the three properties northeast of the subject property are all within the proposed outdoor area of the Civic Square project. So just as a bit of context to put the property in question in context regarding where it is, and in particular why it's being proposed to be rezoned is that the owner and applicant would like to use the existing dwelling there as a converted office space for counseling services. I believe it's the owner and applicant being one of the potential business owners or proprietors, and then there would be potentially a second counselor involved in providing services out of that property. Just very briefly, there was discussion around having it be a home-based business. However, that's not appropriate given that there's not intended to be anyone living at the property, and it would be used solely for a commercial purpose, as in providing that professional service of counseling at that site. So I'm certainly happy to answer any questions council may have, and that's all I have to say on the item at this time.
Thank you, Spencer. Is there any questions through the Spencer by council? Councillor Home?
Do we, thank you, your worship, through to Spencer, do we know what the business are, you say the counseling businesses, is that, I'm not sure what exactly, is that financial counseling or is it mental health?
Certainly, through the chair to Councillor Home, excellent question. I should clarify, it is for my understanding, mental health related counseling services.
Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, thank you, your worship. Spencer, just a quick question. In your report, in your analysis, you had spoken about it being part of the, or approximate to the Civic Square project. Am I thinking it's probably one block west of the Civic Square project, or because the 19th Street kind of would be facing John Davidson School?
Certainly, through the chair to Councillor Chapman, I do believe, unless I have my directions completely mixed up, that it is directly south of 3 properties that would make up a part of the outdoor space for the Civic Square project, with the library being directly east of it in the green highlighted areas, which are institutional recreationally zoned.
So that's right across the street from the current John Davidson School?
That's correct, Mayor.
Councillor Home?
Thank you, worship. I move first reading.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Avery, you had your hand up. Do you?
No, I was just going to move for first reading, but Councillor Home has it, so we're good.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor for first reading of the bylaw. Any further discussion, Councillor Chapman? You? No? Okay. Seeing no more discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and so we have Councillor Chapman, Mayor Craig, Councillor Lloyd, Councillor Home, Councillor Simpson, and Councillor Avery in favor, and Councillor Pauls, you're opposed? Councillor Pauls is opposed. Okay, so that's carried 6-1. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor, just a note, procedural, first reading, our council procedural bylaw states that council cannot dispute first reading on a bylaw.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Paul, would you like to reconsider or keep your vote as opposed? If you,
I could be on the dark side. I could.
okay, you want to be opposed?
No. You can.
Okay.
I'll join you.
Okay. So just for clarity, that's the light side instead of. But,
Oh, you think?
yeah, thank you. So we're unanimous then. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lana.
Just a quick question through your worship, then just on that procedural motion, then it has to be unanimous for first reading.
That is correct, Mayor, or sorry, that is correct, Councillor Chapman.
And it is unanimous now, so that's good. Thank you. Okay, and then we have item 6.3, subdivision and development appeal board bylaw.
Yes, thank you again, Mayor. This bylaw 795 P1220 is essentially replacing what used to be the town's involvement in the Chinook Intermunicipal Subdivision and Development Appeal Board by way of bylaw 753 P0319. So due to the fact that the town has moved forward only using GIS services with the Regional Services Commission and foregoing planning and development services, that means that we must have a local subdivision and development appeal board at this time. So this bylaw before council this evening effectively mirrors the intermunicipal bylaw that was in place prior to this, except it focuses exclusively within the boundaries of Coaldale. And it's effectively the same thing. It gives life to the ability for the town to hold subdivision and development appeals as per is required by the Municipal Government Act. Just as a point of note, we reached out to the 2 members of the public at large who have been appointed by council to sit on the subdivision and development appeal board and made them aware of the change to only a local board, and they're both wishing to maintain their status as appointed members for the Coaldale only SDAB. That's all I have on this item. I'm happy to field any questions council may have.
Any questions, Sergio Spencer? So does this have any ramifications for budgeting and operational? Do we have to increase budget for staffing and this change, or is it already incorporated?
Excellent question. Thank you, Mayor. The cost that was paid to be a member of the Chinook Intermunicipal Board was $500 per year as a part of covering those costs of running a larger board through the region. So we would recuperate the $500 a year, and then any subdivision and development appeal that came out of Coaldale, whether it was heard by Coaldale appointees or anyone else on that larger board, was all costs paid by the town already. So there's no additional cost, and there is a very small savings of the $500 per year.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments? Does anybody care to sponsor first reading? Councillor Pauls moves for first reading. Any discussion? I see none, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and I have all 7 hands up. Councillor Chapman, Craig, Lloyd, Holm, Pauls, Simpson, and Avery. So that's unanimous on first reading. I'll entertain a motion for second reading if you so choose. Councillor Lloyd moves for second reading. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Okay, and we have a unanimous vote for Chapman, Craig, Lloyd, Holm, Pauls, Simpson, and Avery. So that's second reading passed unanimously. We could entertain a motion for unanimous consent to hold all 3 readings in one evening. Councillor Chapman moves to support unanimous consent. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously by Chapman, Craig, Lloyd, Holm, Pauls, Simpson, and Avery. And I'll entertain third reading of the bylaw. Councillor Lloyd supports third reading of the bylaw. Councillor Lloyd has that. I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. That's unanimously by Chapman, Craig, Lloyd, Holm, Paul, Simpson, and Avery. Thank you very much. Then we have 6.4 fees and rates bylaw, and Spencer, go ahead.
Thank you again, Mayor. I do believe this is my last bylaw for the evening, in case anybody's wondering when I'm going to be done talking about bylaws. So this particular bylaw, 797C1220, is it's come about in a similar way as the SDAB bylaw because of the fact that we've elected to discontinue planning and development services with the Regional Services Commission. The town is now in a position where we need to start collecting fees for the subdivision applications that we would be responsible to process. My recommendation at this time is to give consideration to the fact that the fees presented this evening. So that's number one, an application fee of $710. Number two, a per lot initial fee of $330. And number three, a per lot endorsement fee. So that's only if a subdivision is approved. To get it to Land Title's office would be a per lot endorsement fee of $205. And I would recommend that these fees remain the same as presented in the updated or the proposed update to the rates and fees bylaw. The reason that I would recommend they remain the same is that these are the fees that the Regional Service Commission has had in place consistently across the region for a number of years now. So it's not out of line with any other municipality in the region in terms of what a subdivider might expect to have to pay on an application basis. And that's all I have to say on this matter, and I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, I'll open the floor to any questions of Spencer by council. Councillor Chapman.
I'll move for first reading.
Okay, any discussion? I'll call a question. All in favor? Okay, and so we have unanimous support for that. Chapman, Craig, Lloyd, Holm, Paul, Simpson, and Avery. So we have first reading passed. Councillor Simpson moves second reading. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Okay, and that's unanimous again. Chapman, Craig, Lloyd, Holm, Paul, Simpson, and Avery. And we can entertain the motion for unanimous consent if anybody wishes.
So moved, Roger.
Roger moves for unanimous consent. All in favor? Okay, and we have unanimous consent by Chapman, Craig, Lloyd, Holm, Paul, Simpson, and Avery. And anybody who wants to sponsor third reading? Councillor Pauls moves for third reading. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried unanimously by Chapman, Craig, Lloyd, Holm, Pauls, Simpson, and Avery. Thank you very much. Thank you, Spencer. And we have 7.1, appointment of returning officer for 2021 election, CAO Hastings. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In anticipation of the upcoming municipal election, council needs to appoint a returning officer on or before June 30th. Given that the campaign period can begin as early as January 2021, it is felt that the appointment of the returning officer now would be best for planning purposes. Following the appointment of the returning officer by council, the returning officer would then have the ability to appoint a deputy returning officer to assist in the election planning efforts. The recommendation is to appoint Lana Antony, our legislative coordinator, as the returning officer, given that she's had the experience of working last election.
Any, Councillor Holm?
I hear a train coming. I would move this, that Lana be our returning officer.
Any discussion? Okay, I see none. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's unanimously passed by Councillor Chapman, Craig, Lloyd, Holm, Paul, Simpson, and Avery. Thank you. 7.2, we have our CEO to speak to that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to request that council make a resolution endorsing the grant application that the GIS division of the Oldman River Regional Services Commission is making on behalf of all member municipalities. The grant they are seeking to obtain will fund updated orthophotography in member municipalities. The proposed resolution is contained as an attachment to the report. I will note that in the event that ORSC is unsuccessful in their attempt at receiving this grant, which they have done a good job at procuring the last couple of years, the cost per municipality, should they wish to participate in the updated orthophotography, would range between $4,214 to $5,478. The total number or cost would depend on the volume of municipalities that choose to participate on a cash basis in the event the grant is not successful. At this time, all that's required is a resolution from council, as shown in the example attachment, that they can use as support for the application they are making. In the event that they're not successful, then a separate update would be provided to council on next steps.
Thank you, CEO Hastings. Is there any questions from council? Councillor Holm?
Thank you, Your Worship, through to our CEO. I'm assuming by your write up here that this is not a cost shared grant, that this is 100% grant that they're applying for, is it?
Through to Councillor Holm, that's my understanding based on the program. The Alberta Community Partnership is the funding stream from which they'll be making the application.
Okay, thank you. Seems like a reasonable path forward. Councillor Holm?
I would move that we authorize Coaldale to participate in this application as per the recommendation of our CAO.
Any other discussion? Yeah, I see none. I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and that's unanimously approved by Councillor Chapman, Craig, Lloyd, Holm, Falls, Simpson, and Avery. Thank you very much. And Spencer gets flex his muscles by introducing something completely different than a bylaw. So here, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is quite an interesting item. Myself and Cameron Mills, our Manager of Economic Development, met with Dr. Justin Steed, the owner of the what would locally be known as the Wally's Pizza side of 1910 20th Street, that portion of the building. We had an excellent discussion about what could be done with the east-facing wall of that building, the exterior wall. And I would suggest to council that based on the recommendation in the staff report, staff be authorized to continue discussing different ideas and options and ways that we can partner with Dr. Steed in achieving the goal of adding some life and vibrancy to that side of the building as a way of highlighting Main Street as our one of our special areas of the community.
Thank you, Spencer. I think it's awesome that Dr. Steed is reaching out on this kind of a project, and it'll be long overdue improvement to that facade. So I hope that your discussions are fruitful going forward. Councillor Chapman wants the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Spencer, and I'd like to thank Dr. Steed as well for his generous idea behind this. I know that when we had the mural committee a number of years ago, we looked at that building and that wall to conceptualize a future for it. And the cost to doing that would be too enormous for our committee without a grant to move it forward. So I'd be interested in hearing more, and I would support a motion that council direct administration to continue a discussion with Dr. Steed to come up with a plan to present back to council and to have Dr. Steed attend the January 14th, 21 meeting, or at a later date if necessary, to discuss and present the ideas in greater detail. I don't think we have any money budgeted for that, so I would like to have a discussion or a robust discussion with Dr. Steed in regards to what he conceptualizes and where the monies would come from to do that, and maybe, I guess, between administration and Dr. Steed to come up with a mural plan if they so choose to move forward.
So for clarity, did you make that motion to direct the administration to continue talks, or?
Yes.
Okay, so Councillor Chapman has a motion on the floor to direct the administration to continue discussions with Dr. Steed, and of course he's elaborated on some talking points going forward. Any discussion? Okay, I see none. So we have a motion to direct the further dialogue. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried unanimously by Chapman, Craig, Lloyd, Holm, Paul, Simpson, and Avery. Thank you. And we have item 7.4. And we have Leah to introduce that topic.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everybody. So the purpose of this report is to present snowplow name submissions from the community for council's consideration and request that council select a new name for this snowplow. So just for a bit of background, the town recently acquired a new snowplow, and sort of as a fun way to engage with the community, we saw an opportunity for residents to participate in a naming contest. So this matter has appeared before council previously during the 2020 budget approval process, and the idea was discussed as part of the procurement of a new snowplow. Back in October of this year, the town polled the community for suggestions on a new snowplow name. The submissions from the survey are attached to the report. There's a comprehensive list of all the names as well as the top submissions summarized at the top of the document. So my request again is that council select a new name for the snowplow with the recommendation that council give consideration to the top submissions from participants. So with that, I will open it up to discussion.
Okay, Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one question with this. So with if you put the top three, if you did Plowy, Mick, Plow Face, and Snowy, Mick, Snow Face, and then Mr. Plow, but if you do a survey out to the residents for them to decide which is the one that they want, is that something possible that we could do?
Yeah, definitely. We could do a final poll with the top 2 or 3 names and go with the one that gets the most votes just based on those 3 selections.
Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I support what Councillor Simpson is proposing, and I think further to that, whether the operators that are going to be using that equipment, maybe they want to by committee decide on a name.
I think Councillor Chapman, that kind of departs from the direction we've already taken to engage the community. So I think that kind of goes in a different direction than what we've already said. If we have that administrative people meet a panel, but I might be wrong.
I would agree with the mayor's statement that we would want to keep this as a community-based selection process, but I do appreciate your consideration to include the operators of the snowplow as well.
Councillor Simpson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to make a motion to have a poll go out to let the citizens make the final decision of the top 3 names. So it would be Plowy McPlowface, Snowy McSnowface, and Mr. Plow.
Okay, we have a motion by Councillor Simpson on the floor. Any discussion? Okay, I see none. All in favor of Councillor Simpson's motion? Okay, and that's carried unanimously by Councillors Chapman, Mayor Craig, Councillor Lloyd, Holm, Paul, Simpson, and Avery. Thank you. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
And then we're at 7.5, and Cam Mills will introduce the business license renewals review.
Okay. Hello. And audio still working? Everything's good?
You're coming in loud and clear. Thank you, Cam.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor Craig, Council. So we wanted to take the opportunity to bring forward an idea that we generated fairly recently that has a fairly quick turnaround. So we wanted to look at our business license renewals. Back in April or May or March, when did COVID start? Whenever COVID started. 10 years ago, it feels like. We had a discussion as a group about things we could do as an organization to help out with our business community and the general community as well. And we talked about some of the economic impact from some of the COVID mitigation measures which were in place then. And as you recall, we discussed even at that point that some of the economic impact from COVID wasn't anticipated to be felt until later in the year, and that it was going to be a bit of a long haul. And now with the renewal of some of these mitigation measures coming forward very recently, and definitely impacting some of our business community, as an organization, we wanted to say, okay, what are things we can do quickly and easily to help out, to give us some time, and then maybe review things a little bit more down the line. So we're looking at this for a bit of a snapshot here. Business license renewals go out typically the last week of December. Last year, we sent out 382 business license renewal notices. And these renewal notices, they go to anyone who had an annual license with the town previously. Business licenses range in cost from $60 to $300, $300 being an out-of-town business operating in town. Perhaps a home builder comes in to do a large construction project or something like that. And they range in value from there. And for some of these, $60 or $100 isn't much. But for other businesses, especially for our smallest businesses, our home-based businesses, $100 ticket, $100 hit or $175 hit out of pocket in a month where they're completely shut down in terms of their ability to work is fairly significant. And we actually got this idea from some commentary on Facebook from one of our previous posts, and we thought it was something worth considering. So the concept that we wanted to bring forward to council is this. We're not looking at sort of a cancellation of business license rates. Rather, what we're proposing is let's give our business community an additional 90 days to pay. So if someone comes in January and wants a business license, rather than taking cash up front, we can basically provide the business license and invoice them and say, due at the end of April, due April 30th, due for payment then, without any sort of interest or penalty or anything like that. There's not, there's a modest cash flow consideration for the town, though that's not typically a great concern for us. And there's not any sort of significant financial burden for us in the long term. This would give some of those businesses that are shut down in December something they don't have to worry about. And it would also give us an opportunity to analyze what the impact of some of these shutdowns are going to be. Obviously, we talked about 4 weeks as being from December 13th, I believe it was, in terms of when these restrictions were in place. But clearly, these are 4 weeks or more has been the discussion, and that's truly what the discussion is. And so if we do something like this, it's an opportunity to say thank you to our business community and say, yeah, don't worry about it. That's fine. We're here to play ball. And at the same time, we can come back in perhaps at a February meeting if these are continuing, and we'll have a lay of the land in terms of the financial impact and the economic impact of these measures. And at that time, we can do a more comprehensive analysis in terms of what are steps we can take as an organization to provide some support if we should so choose.
Councillor Avery, then Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Worship. So what would the financial impact be if we chose not to charge for in-town business licenses? So that's not including the out-of-town businesses, but to support our local businesses who pay property tax in our community.
Thank you, Councillor Avery. It's a good question, and unfortunately, because of the quick turnaround for something like this, I don't have the time leading up to the report to provide the exact numbers. When you're looking at something like this, if you look at 382 business license renewals last year, at an average within that range of, say, about $100, that would be, in the $35,000 range, somewhere $30,000 to $40,000 is what we'd be expecting to be looking at.
Which we could easily take out of our surplus for 2020, because it would be a one-time, correct?
Potentially, yeah. And so what I would suggest is a measure like that, that'd be a good thing for us to talk about in February, when we can have like the really critical analysis of what the costs are. In the interim, because we've deferred the payment requirements, there wouldn't be many who would have paid up front, and it would be a simple thing for us to do at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Holm.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to follow up a little bit on Councillor Avery's comment there. I would be in favor of doing that as long as it's only for those who renew, that they wouldn't be for new applications, because I'd hate to waive a fee for a new application and then you just come in for a month or two and in and out and gone. That if the renewals have been established, they have been paying taxes in the past, somebody new, I would like to make sure that they're fully engaged in being a business owner in Coaldale.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Certainly a reasonable thing to look at. I can't say that I understand the exact details of the license application process well enough to know that that's something that we can easily accommodate, but it should be something that's potentially feasible.
I think CAO Hastings has some clarity to add too.
Just gonna mute your mic there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The total approximate amount of revenue that we receive each year for business licenses is $60,000. What percentage of that 60,000 is for local businesses? I don't have that exact number, but just to give you a ballpark in terms of the total amount of revenue. I think if council is interested in learning more about those details, we can certainly bring back a follow-up report to show council how much of that $60,000 is, how that's broken out for Coaldale versus non-Coaldale businesses, or how much of that 60,000 is represented by the reciprocal business licensing agreement that we have with other communities that sign on to a similar deal. We would have to look at that, but we can certainly come back to council with that information quite easily if we run a report, and then we'll know in either January or February of next year what the volume of numbers are for the renewals.
And if I could just add to what Kaylin was suggesting. So typically with a report like this, our preference would be to come to the table with all those numbers intact. But of course, because of the quick turnaround of these things and how agenda items are prepared and lead times and things like that, we felt like the option was more prudent to bring this now rather than wait to the next meeting, which is a full month from now, at which point the ship would have sailed, so to speak. So I would suggest, this is a simple enough thing for us to do. With respect to this, it does provide some cash flow relief, and we can certainly have that discussion again in February or January potentially as well, though I would suggest if we hold off until February, we're still going to be in a position where we're within that deferral period, but then we'll also have a better sense of how the provincial regulations have worked, whether they've been extended, what the impact is, that sort of thing.
I see Councillor Simpson, but I just wanted to comment that perhaps the easiest thing to do would be just authorize administration to delay the mailing of the renewal notices until you'll at least after our next meeting, or perhaps January 31st or something, and then we can have this item back on our January 18th meeting. But Cam, would that work?
My preference, Mr. Mayor, would be to just provide the payment deferral. The reason for that is that we still want people to get the business licenses in place. And so we want to see who's coming forward, who's no longer in business, that sort of thing. So the simplest thing for us operationally is to provide the deferral. We can make the announcement of that through our various channels. And then because people know that they have the license in place, but payment isn't required, if we decide to cancel payment, for example, or cut payment in half or whatever it is, I wouldn't expect that it would be a massive amount of work to refund the small group of people that may have paid in advance. So it's probably simplest for us to go forward simply with a deferral.
Councillor Simpson and then Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Your Worship. We definitely know December and January will be really hard on businesses, especially small businesses that don't have an online presence.
Right.
I think after this year, many of the businesses were hoping for a good December, and unfortunately, they are not going to have it. I don't think, knowing that it's only $60,000, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that we direct administration to provide an extended period for payment for local businesses applying for a 2021 business license until April 30th, 2021. I hope this is a small step for us to help those businesses to continue business in Coaldale, whether even those out of town ones that are bringing business in here. Honestly, we need to support them because who knows how long some of these guys will be around.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councillor Simpson and Councillor Chapman. You wanted to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Speaking in favor of the motion through to Cam, if we went and sent out all the renewals for business licenses all across the board, and then put an invitation to them for a deferral to April 30th or whatever is going to be on the motion, then that kind of gives us does two things for us. One, it does get the business licenses out, and then secondly, it does offer those who can pay to pay sooner and those who need to pay later. And as I said, I support the motion, but if we kind of do that, then we're not trying to play catch up with businesses after April 30th. Sending out renewal notices.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Yeah, that would fundamentally be the idea, right? Is to say, we're still sending out our notices. They're still letting people know that they're being renewed, and also gives us an opportunity to tell them the good news about the fact that, we're here, we're with them, we're showing support and solidarity with our business community. And it also might, be an opportunity for them to provide us some feedback on some other things, small things that we can do as an organization to help them out. It's something we're always interested in hearing from our business community. We've done a reasonable job, certainly, of hearing from them and working with organizations like the Chamber and things like that, and we'll continue to do it. This is to me is one step. It's probably part of a package of things that we can do to provide to show our support for them, on top of the things we already do, like low commercial tax rates and things like that.
Yeah, the difficult thing for those who are purchasing reciprocal licenses is that other jurisdictions may not have that deferral program in place, so they may have to come in and purchase a business license regardless.
Yes, thank you, and that is possible. And this is one of those things where it's just more it's just more complicated than it seems at first blush. And so what we think makes the most sense is to have, a certain amount of flexibility in terms of, how we roll this out. But the spirit of it being to provide that relief in the best way we can.
Any further discussion to Councillor Simpson's motion? Okay, I see none. I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and that's unanimously supported by Chapman, Craig, Lloyd, Holm, Balls, Simpson, and Avery. That's passed. And we move on to information items 11.1 to 11.5. It's nice to see that the Fire Academy has gotten some grants, so that's awesome, and thank you for the people that did that. Does any member of council want to draw attention to any particular item on the information? Lana, do you want to speak to 11.3, or is that fine to leave it that way?
Hi, Mayor. Yes, I certainly can speak to that if you like. The council agenda calendar that you see included in the package is a proposal to help us on the administration side to, I guess, better compile and have more time to review our documents before they are published. So you'll see on the second attachment is a by date printed out so that you can have a better understanding to show the flow of how it goes through our administration to our CAO and then eventually on to council as well.
Okay, thank you, Lana. All right. So do you need an actual motion to adopt that? Is that a recommendation for the cutoff, or is it just for information?
It's just sharing for information. Administratively, we came up with that just to help us better flow of information. So yeah, it's just to share with council if should council ever have any items that they would like to bring forward as well, it would be helpful to council to know as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Holm.
I would move 11.1 to 11.5 for information.
Okay, thank you very much. Any discussion? I don't see any, so I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's approved unanimously by Simpson, Avery, Pauls, Holm, Lloyd, Craig, and Chapman. Just to switch up a bit. And then we're done the public portion of the meeting. So council, before we adjourn, we'll take a break for about 10 minutes. So about in 7:25, no, 35, 7:35, please dial back in and we'll have the teleconference all set up. Councillor Holm?
I move to go into closed session.
Okay, so Councillor Holm moves to go in closed session, and then we'll dial back in, and Lana should be back here at 7:35-ish. So I'll send you a text when we're all ready to go, and then you can dial into the number provided, okay? Okay, so we have a Councillor Holm move to go into closed session. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously by Chapman, Craig, Lloyd, Holm, Pauls, Simpson, and Avery. Thank you very much.